The Falcons dropped their second preseason game 13-12 in Baltimore. But to me, the storyline is not the score. Sure, it's nice to win. It's better than winning than losing. But in preseason football, I'm not going to make a big deal out of 1-point losses or 1-point wins. But to me, the bigger storylines are Younghoe Koo missing 3 field goals. That's an actual starter on the field, getting the yips before the season starts. And then 37 guys not playing. I do not agree with the decision to not have Michael Penix play. So we'll get into more detail on that in just a moment. Here are some of the box scores and stats from players. Taylor Heinicke led the Falcons with 114 yards, 8 passes, 8 completions, 16 attempts. Jace McClellan had a nice couple of rushes towards the end there, especially in that near game-winning touchdown. 11 carries, 55 yards, 1 touchdown. Chris Blair, I've actually been really impressed with. The Falcons are looking for a 4th or 5th receiver to really emerge after Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, and Kadero Hodge. I mean, those were the only 4 wide receivers who were healthy scratchers today, so that tells you a lot about where they stand in terms of their roster status. So for Chris Blair to really start to emerge as, a solid 5th receiver, I think he's very close to securing a spot on the 53-man roster. But to me, the biggest storyline is either Koo or Penix and a lot of other, not just starters not playing, but like backups not playing. I fundamentally do not agree with the decision to sit Michael Penix and a lot of these other second-string guys. Taquan Graham, Clark Phillips, Eddie Goldman, Antonio Hamilton. Just a couple of players that need to play, that need reps. Those are not guys that should be given hall passes for the day. Like, if you want to give a hall pass to your, franchise left tackle, Jake Matthews, because you know what he's capable of, sure. Same goes for Chris Lindstrom, Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata. Like, if you want to give a day off to those veterans that don't need preseason to get their act together, I'm with you. You know who's not in that camp? About half the guys who didn't play today. Like your rookie quarterback, Michael Penix. He's not going to play a single regular season game if all goes well, if we're being honest. For maybe 2 or 3 years. Which means you get 3 preseason games to actually see him play in a real game. And you're having him sit for what reason? Fear of injury? It's football. They got to play. He needs to play. He needs to acclimate himself to NFL game speed as much as possible because he won't get that chance in the regular season. Like, he should be playing every single preseason game this year and next year, and he should be playing more than just a series or 2. I would have been happy if Penix played the full game today. Like, that would have been much better, I think, for all parties. Michael Penix should be playing in the preseason. I do not understand why he isn't playing. I would love a good explanation if there's some unknown injury. Okay, that would make sense then. Didn't pop up on any injury reports to me. I do not understand Penix not playing. And if someone can offer a good explanation, I'm all ears. But I'll tell you what, when you've got a new head coach, a new OC, a new DC, a lot of new things, new quarterback, I think preseason is much more valuable to them than a team that's running it back with the same coach of 5, 6, 7 years. There is a lot of new being placed in. New culture, new scheme, new jargon, new playbook, new everything. New carpets, for crying out loud. You do not want to have these wrinkles get worked out in the regular season. I am not seeing eye to eye with Raheem Morris's approach of not playing these guys in the preseason. Like, it's one thing to sit Jake Matthews and Chris Lindstrom. Fine. Even if you want to not play Kirk Cousins, although I think he should play at least a series in the preseason finale. But Kadero Hodge, he's good. There's no improvement needed for him. He's ready to roll. No. Those are guys, these backups, that are not going to play much in the regular season. But when their number is called, if an injury pops up, I would like them to have some preseason reps to draw back to so they're not just a fish out of water if they go out there in week 2, 3, 7, or 12. I am just not on board with this overprotection of players because of some injuries in preseason week 1. What happened to Helms and Trice suck. but it's football. You're going to have to play them. You can't bubble wrap them forever. That's my 2 cents on the matter. I think we see an polarizing, what's the word I'm looking for? Correction. When you have new coaches, first-year guys, and how much they play their starters in the preseason because they're terrified of injuries. I remember when the Broncos had Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson. Remember 2022, their first year together? Hackett didn't play a single starter in the preseason. All 3 preseason games, Russ sat, all the starters sat. They did not play them. They didn't want to worry about injuries. They did not put a lot of value into the preseason. They came out and were so bad offensively at just getting the snap off in time that the home crowd in Denver was counting down the play clock for them. Those are things and kinks that happen to teams that get solved in August. I do not want to see those issues pop up in September. And if they do, you can draw back to this moment here of yeah, maybe Taquan Graham should have been in there because I don't think he's in a spot where he can just take the day off. No. There should be a lot of guys that sat today in the game. Fundamentally disagree with it. We can talk about the quarterbacks for a moment here now. Heinicke, and then we'll get to Younghoe Koo. 8 for 16, 114 yards. I think he is putting together as much highlights and tape as possible for the Falcons to trade him. They're down a 3rd and a 5th now for next year's draft after the Judon trade and the tampering. If a team has their quarterback get injured, they want to watch some Heinicke tape. And the Falcons need to put together a better tape than preseason week 1. So I would not be surprised if Heinicke gets flipped for a 6 or a day 3 pick swap or something. John Paddock, first game as a Falcon. He was cut before week 1, then brought back. UDFA. I think he's not terribly far off from Heinicke, although there's not really a ton of confidence, it looks like, in him in terms of the play calling. It was a 2-minute drill, and they ran it the first 3 plays. That doesn't scream, we believe in our quarterback. So I think for John, if he's going to make the practice squad, it's going to be because he can really help the starting quarterback prepare each week in between the ears when it comes to his quarterback's play and not so much his arm talent. So this will be, I would say, a fun QB3 battle to watch for. Ultimately, it's going to be pretty meaningless once the regular season gets here, but that's the latest on the Taylor Heinicke front. All right, before we talk about Younghoe Koo, I do want to tell everyone about our friends over at PrizePicks. See, PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. I'm talking turning $10 into $1,000. Now, if you're looking for an example of my selections, this is what I'm rolling with for the upcoming season. Taking the less on Patrick Mahomes' passing yards, the more on Tyreek Hill and Saquon's yardage, and then the more for Garrett Wilson on receptions. So if you like my selections, feel free to download the app right now. Use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. You can make your own selections. You can ride with me so we have something to root for together all season long. But download the PrizePicks app today and use that code CLNS for a deposit match up to $100. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. Let's talk about Younghoe Koo. We need to have the conversation. I think what we saw today was worthy of having a legit conversation about if the Falcons should start making contingency plans. I think we're at the stage of we need to talk about this. I don't think action is required just yet. Lucky for him, his 3 misses, all within 50 yards, by the way, which is inexcusable for a guy who had 2 misses all of last season in the 40 to 49-yard range, which he had 3 alone today. Lucky for him, though, it's a preseason game. This is the only time you really get a mulligan. Now, if he comes out and misses a single kick in the preseason finale, that next practice, there needs to be another kicker there. I think Younghoe Koo has proven with his track record that he's good, and I'm willing to kind of let him get a pass, get a strike, without feeling like you have to go out and get another kicker. But kicker leashes are some of the shortest in the NFL. And if this miss problem continues into the preseason finale, I don't think you need to bring a kicker in to release Koo, but I think you need to bring a kicker in so that if the problem continues into the regular season and then you move on from him, you'd like to have a head start on a potential replacement. You'd like to have some things, torches in the fire, some things cooking. And if we get more misses next week, that's when you see someone come in, hopefully. So, rough day for Younghoe Koo. All 3 misses, wide left. It didn't feel like he was making an adjustment, which I'm not going to pretend to be a kicker expert, but when you see kickers miss the same way, it's concerning. It's almost like if you're putting and you plop 3 balls down and you hit the same shot 3 times and you never adjust for the break or the read or anything like that. So Koo definitely a little bit on thin ice right now, but lucky for him, he's got a proven track record. However, he doesn't come off like phenomenal seasons the last 2 years. 5 misses the last 2 straight seasons. Season before that, he had 2 misses. So he's starting to slip out of that Pro Bowl range he was, and now we're getting a shaky preseason. I'm monitoring this. This is not something to disregard, but I don't think action's required yet. To wrap up the show here, a couple of quick notes and hitters. Chris Blair, I think, like I said earlier, making a good case to make this roster. 4 grabs, 91 yards. Jace McClellan, him and Carlos Washington are duking it out for that 3rd running back spot. I've been very impressed by Washington so far. Remains to be seen if the Falcons want to carry 4 running backs. I don't think so, although they may not want to move on from their draft pick just a few months later. But still nice to see Jace find his way into the end zone. So that's kind of the latest on the RB3 battle. I mean, that's where we're at in the preseason, which is why preseason just sucks. But talking about just the roster as a whole here after the last couple of days, I mean, you add Matthew Judon to this front 5. That's exciting. Like, how does Arnold Ebiketie not play in this game? What did we see out of him in the last preseason game to go, yeah, that's a guy that doesn't need a single more practice rep? No, he needs all the reps he can get. And then after Judon, you get the Justin Simmons addition, which I don't believe has actually been made final yet. My guess is when the Falcons and Simmons and his agent were getting things done, Atlanta was probably either on their way to Baltimore. So, there's no sense in signing you right now just to have the whole team be in another city. So I'm guessing you'll get the official Atlanta Falcons, tweet of we have signed Justin Simmons tomorrow. But how would you grade the Falcons so far through 2 preseason games? A, B, C, D, or F? 2 losses and not very inspiring play. Like, if Younghoe Koo makes his kicks, it makes one more kick, like it's a different game. But it didn't feel like the Falcons were really having their way with the Ravens today. And the Ravens were also equally, boring to watch. Their quarterback play was average. I mean, that's kind of being generous, too. So it was bad football across the board. If you missed this game, I'm actually kind of jealous. That's a much better way to spend your Saturday other than pulling your hair out over Younghoe Koo missing 3 kicks. All right, that will do it for us on our post-game show today. Thank you to all of you that tuned in to our watch party. Big shout-out to Jose and Ken for joining the Dirty Bird Club. If you would like to be a part of this channel, it's completely free, so go ahead and subscribe right now.